Hello, and welcome to Nightcap with Neoliberal Tears. I'm Neoliberal Tears. And tonight I wanted to talk about something that I've been observing from my perspective that the left is in the US is grappling with, which is should we invest our energies, our hopes, our dreams, whatever, in electoralism? Is there any reason for us to continue to elect specifically Democrats because we live in a two-party system, third parties are marginalized and have no power whatsoever. So a lot of well-meaning people, well-meaning leftists, progressive, wonder if the path is to still keep running people who are, sorry, that was my cat. Hey, Sam. If it's worth the effort to still to pick Democrats and vote for them as candidates, or another question could be what kinds of Democrats are worth our attention and time. Is it enough to be a liberal Zionist, for example? And should we vote for those people because they're better than the alternative? Or can we hope for maybe a different kinds of candidates who might be able to change the Democratic Party for the better? So there's one candidate running in Michigan. His name is Dr. Abdul El Sayed. He is an epidemiologist, a very, very smart person who endorses Medicare for all and has for a long time. He wrote a book about it, actually, with Bernie Sanders. And he joined the Sumud podcast to talk about what his solution to the genocide in Gaza would be and what he would advocate for. So I wanted to react to it together. Hope you're well. Thank you for joining, and let's do it. Let's do it. Oh, sorry, that's a different clip. Buck. My bad, guys. My bad. We'll get to that clip, don't worry.
Then you got to trust your quarterback. And the thing I'll tell you is, so long as I get to play in a position where I am fighting for justice and equity for everybody, where I'm consistent with my values and consistently willing to stand up to folks who oppose those values, then I hope folks will give me the benefit of the doubt. The other thing I'll tell you about politics is I used to be a professor. And the nice thing about being a professor is you can say whatever, but nobody has to listen to you. In politics, you trade those things. You can do things. But sometimes if you want to do something, you have to choose not to say something. There's this great quote by Edmund Burke. He said, "Sometimes I choose to withhold the truth so that I may speak it for longer later." And I think sometimes our community, we're more interested. We have given up on actually winning, on actually creating peace and justice. And so we'd rather just people say it very loudly. And I'm just not willing to give up on actually winning. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, all I'll tell you is I know who I am. I know what I believe. I think most people who've watched me know who I am and what I believe and hold me accountable to who I say I am and what I say I believe.
Okay, so just to quickly comment there. When I first listened to it, at the beginning at least of what he was saying, I was a little bit hopeful because, he was talking about equity and justice for everyone, for all, which to me sounded almost like, not virtue signaling, but like sort of like a nod to the one-state solution and equal rights from the river to the sea. But then he also says here that he sometimes feels like he needs to withhold saying the right thing, equal rights from the river to the sea, one-state solution. I'm not sure if that's what he was referencing, to be clear. But there's a little bit more caution there, right? Like in sort of saying, I might be holding back or say more later. And I think I would just say that, not that he'll ever listen to this or anyone, but if anybody was asking me what I think, I would say that there has never been a better time. I mean, the better time would have been 1948 to advocate for the one-state solution, and of course, but every second since, there's never been a better time to clarify what it stands for, and advocate for equal rights. The people are behind you. You know, Zoran Mamdani, who's the mayor of New York City, one of the reasons I was really hopeful about his candidacy, and I know that's a whole other topic, and people disagree over whether he, you know, sold out or whatever, or caved to Zionists in his administration. But one thing he never caved on, if you watch the debates, the primary debates between him and Andrew Cuomo, is Zoran advocated for the one-state solution and equal rights from the river to the sea. And that's one thing he never took back. And he won. He won the Jewish vote in New York. So there's no reason to not be loud. I think that's a word the Dr. El Sayed was using. There is no reason to not be loud about our values and what we stand for, and to clarify for people who might not have heard about the one-state solution because it's blacklisted in every media you can imagine, including independent media, which I have a beef with. They never like to talk about the one-state solution. Even they're scared. They're scared shitless. It's one of the reasons I created this channel that nobody watches. And that's okay. That's okay. I hope that doesn't change. But yeah, when I heard his caution here, of Dr. El Sayed caution here, I was a little disappointed, but let me just keep playing and shut up on my part.
So on my way to the interview, on that note, on my way to the interview today to meet with you, I not going to mention names. A good friend of mine sent him a message. Hey, I'm going to be interviewing Abdul, and not exact quote, but the summary was he's a normalizer. Can you give
normalizer of
Israel's actions, supporting Israel? You know, just normalizing Israel's existence, generally speaking, and what they're doing. There are many layers to it, as you can imagine. So I want to see if you could just give your unequivocal stance on the situation vis-a-vis Palestine and Israel.
Yeah. I believe in equal rights to dignity, self-determination, and peace for all people. And I believe that people need to be the champions of their own future. And I believe that any action that our government is taking to stop that from happening, to stand in the way of the equal rights of peace, dignity, and self-determination for Palestinians is wrong, and I oppose it. Whether that is foreign military aid, whether that is weapons sales in contradiction to our own laws, whether that is running cover at the UN or other international bodies of justice, I believe all of that needs to stop. If that makes me a normalizer, okay. I think the question is ultimately, how do you, in action, beget the outcomes that you want? I think sometimes, though, that people mistake empathy for other people's pain to be a willingness to stand up for their injustice, and they're not the same thing. You can both empathize with the real pain that people experience and disagree with what they do out of that pain. And I think, frankly, if you really want to intervene against injustice, you have to be able to hold in that cognitive dissonance, which is to say you have real pain and bad things really did get done to you, and it does not justify what you did. And that is true in human relationships across the board. I think sometimes in our community, we fall into this with us or against us. So you better be apologizing for anything that we did, and you better be indicting for anything they did. I'm never going to be that guy. You know, again, our tradition teaches us, in fact, inscripted on the sword of the prophet, peace be upon him, to speak the truth even if it be against yourself. And I think we've got to do that. And it doesn't mean that bad actions taken on the part of anyone who you generally agree with means that they are wrong and ought to be indicted forever. It just means that that's a bad action. They shouldn't do that. You can say that and at the same time say that does not justify this other bad action being done here. And I think the more that we are willing to be objective about our own values and say, these are the standards and this is what we believe, the faster we are going to get to a position where, the reality of the situation is unimpeachable. Israel committed a genocide. Israel on any given day is committing apartheid. Israel on any given day is committing war crimes. And all of that needs to be stopped. And our country's engagement in that needs to be stopped.
So how does this end though?
God willing, in peace.
What does that look like?
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's not my decision to make. This is the thing about it, is like, I think that people who are running for office in the United States of America need to stop telling other people there how to beget the ultimate peace.
Okay, I'll just pause it right here to say that I think the interviewer and the host of the Sumud podcast did an amazing job actually trying to get specifics. And just to, I guess, play not devil's advocate. We don't like the devil here. The devil, people, voters, especially after electing Democrats and watching genocide happen on their watch, before they can, I think, if I at least I'm speaking for myself, before they can even think of voting for another Democrat again, I think it's right for them to want to hear some clarity about where someone stands on this issue specifically. And, Dr. El-Sayed said that he supports equal rights, but there's also, when he was asked directly, like, how does this end? Like, what do you support? And I love, by the way, that they have like a plushie of a watermelon there. I have one here too. Love it. I love my virtue signaling. I'm kidding. It's not. I love that it's a watermelon. I love that it's smiling. But this is the one state solution, right? Like, that's the point. This is why we're using watermelons, to sort of define the area from the river to the sea. And it shouldn't be scary to call for the one state solution, but you can hear here that, that he said something to the effect of, well, it's not our place to come in and dictate to people what should be done. We can withhold weapons. We can sort of enforce the Leahy laws, but it's not. But then he said it's not our place to tell people what to do. I mean, the United States did tell South Africa what to do, which is stop the fucking apartheid, have real elections for all of your citizens, have a state for all of your citizens, one person, one vote. The international community came together and told South Africa, yeah, apartheid has to stop. So why here can we not? It's absolute. First of all, the United States has been telling countries what to do since the beginning of the United States. So in this case, I mean, trying to sort of throw the ball towards, like, let the people who are undergoing genocide and the people who are committing apartheid, let them figure it out together. I don't want to be involved. I mean, I'm not putting words in his mouth. That's not what he said. But we absolutely have a responsibility to, and the ability to dictate what happens in West Asia more broadly, but in Palestine. We absolutely have the ability to do that as American citizens. So I'm not really sure what's holding him back. I mean, the environment has never been better for anti-Zionists to advocate for the one-state solution in the media and really take the torch forward. I understand it might be scary, and especially for a Muslim American candidate to take that issue on, but he wouldn't be the first person, elected official, who advocates for the one-state solution. Congressmember Rashida Tlaib, who I very much appreciate, adore, admire, and we'll hear from her in just a little bit and what she thinks about the one-state solution. She has committed to it. She advocates for it in the media, and she has never wavered. And Zoran Mamdani as well. So let's hear back from Dr. El-Sayed.
I think if we all understood that our job is to create conditions in which that peace can happen, and certainly stop running cover for creating conditions in which that peace can never happen, I think if every American politician came to that and said, you know what, at the end of the day, that is for the Palestinian people and Jewish Israelis to figure out. And it is not for us to get to decide. And we need to stop doing the things that are stopping peace from happening. I think we would be getting to peace. I don't know what that looks like. I don't, right? Some folks believe that that's 2 states. Some folks believe that that's 1 state with equal laws and equal access for everybody. That is not my decision to make. I'm running for Senate from Michigan. My job is to make sure that my tax dollars don't make that worse while failing to actually provide for the people in Michigan.
Yeah. You can see, though, why that would hurt people given the situation. I mean, I understand and appreciate your answer, but come on, there's a genocide. You got to take a harder line. You got to really say more and say enough.
What is a harder line than enough? Because what I'm saying is enough.
Okay, just to pause it a little bit here. I think I'm trying to say this as nicely as I can. I think people are very frustrated with politicians when they don't say, first of all, whenever you hear a politician say something to the effect of, let me be clear, the next sentence out of their mouths is the least clear thing that you've ever heard in your entire fucking life. They hate politicians specifically hiding behind what they're comfortable saying and sort of leaving everything else between the lines or being ambiguous, deliberately ambiguous. I mean, that's why AOC is so untalented in so many ways, because, like, you know, she tries to say things without saying them, and everyone sees through the bullshit. People want someone who speaks about this issue specifically very clearly and directly and from a moral standpoint. And Dr. El-Sayed, to be clear, he goes far enough to say, I believe in equal rights. But then he also said, you know, and some people believe it's 2 states. Some people believe it's 1 state, like the one, like, you know, but you know, it's not for me to figure out as a senator from Michigan. That's a disappointing answer. I agree with the host here it irked me. And there are people that I trust, activists I trust, who are advocating for Dr. El-Sayed, and I trust their judgment. I do. And maybe it's true that once he's elected, he'll feel, or maybe once the primary is over, maybe Dr. El-Sayed will feel more comfortable to be like, you know what? Guess what? I'm gonna join Rashida Tlaib now that I'm elected, or now that the general is over, now that I'm in this seat for 6 years. Don't have to worry. Now I'm gonna advocate for the 1-state solution, or now I'm gonna join Congressmember Tlaib and Mayor Mamdani. But I think he would benefit from, just because it sounds clear to me that he believes in equal rights. So the only solution that's compatible with equal rights is the 1-state solution. The 2-state solution is a Zionist solution. It's a Zionist framework that from the beginning has been designed to deny Palestinians the right of return, because if there are 2 states, Palestinians would not be allowed to return to the original homes that they were expelled from. And also, the West has never been serious about the 2-state solution. So, you know, and I think voters are rightly rejecting candidates who say that they support a 2-state solution, because politicians have been saying that for so fucking long, they never mean it. But more to the point, it's an unjust, immoral solution that actually denies equal rights to people. So I think to be a little bit mean for a brief second, I think he's trying to have it a little bit both ways here by saying he advocates for equal rights, but also it's not his job to figure out. He's a senator from Michigan. You know, I think that's a disappointing answer from my personal perspective that no one should take seriously or listen to. I mean, if you disagree with me, I actually really welcome that. I mean, I'm not here to persuade anybody. I'm just here to vent, I guess, and try to give people something to listen to while they're cleaning or vacuuming or petting their cats or anything else. But let's keep listening.
Right, like my job at the end of the day, right? I'm running for Senate from Michigan. My job is to make sure that the resources that I help to control as a US Senator are not being misspent to destroy other people. That is saying enough. My job is to make sure that the government that I in part represent does not run cover for another government committing apartheid and genocide. That is saying enough. My job is often to be the lone voice arguing for equal rights for Palestinians and the Palestinian ideal of being able to have self-determination. So I guess my question is, what would you want a senator to do if it's not that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like that is something that we have not seen very many senators do. The other thing I'll tell you is this.
Any senators.
The other thing I'll tell you is this. I think sometimes people mistake style for substance. You know, my job is to go and have that conversation with anyone and everyone. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the emotions of it. And we don't recognize that the best way to have a conversation sometimes with people who are not caught up with those emotions is to level with them in the place that they are. So when I'm having a conversation with a little old lady in Brighton who does not really pay attention to the issue, has been fed all kinds of mis and disinformation about Palestinians and the Palestinian people, do you want me to go yell? Or would you rather me sit down and say, look, my job is to make sure you have healthcare, your grandkids have healthcare. And right now, your money, my money, all of our money is being used to drop bombs on other people's hospitals instead of to uplift your own. So where do you think we should go?
Okay, I just have to react to this straw man that he's bringing up. If he's basically saying, well, first of all, he said, do you want me to go yell? No one's asking him to yell. And I think framing people who want anti-Zionist elected officials, and that's their standard in terms of who they're going to vote for, that's my standard. I would not vote for a liberal Zionist. I would not vote for someone who says, yes, Gaza is going through a genocide, but 2 states, 1 state, I don't know, that's for them to figure out. That's not good enough for me. It might be good for other people. It might be enough for many other people. Not good enough for me. Not when we already have elected officials who are anti-Zionists, who do support the one-state solution, and who are not yelling about it. Rashida Tlaib has never yelled about it, and I think to use the straw man that he was using in terms of, what if I speak to an old lady from Brighton, Michigan, who thinks the one-state solution means a genocide of Jewish Israelis? Well, then your job as a brilliant, educated doctor is to explain to her that equal rights from the river to the sea is not anti-Semitic, is not a genocide of anybody. And it's actually so easy to explain. Like, it's the easiest thing in the world to explain. But he's sort of framing it as if, well, I can't, like, he's using this hypothetical person who sort of is a Zionist or has been propagandized to believe in Zionism or see the one-state solution as, like the same excuses in South Africa applied, right? Like, people thought that if everyone in South Africa had the right to vote, then it would be genocide of the white South African population. That's not a reason to sort of engage, to sort of validate that racist thinking. If anything, it's your job as someone who is brilliant and knows about this issue to educate voters. And also, voters are already there, right? Like, Zoran Mamdani advocated for the one-state solution and he won. Rashida Tlaib is in her, I believe it's her 6th term. I could be wrong. She was elected in 2018. And she got elected on the one-state solution. So there's no reason to point to voters and say, oh, well, they might be where they might be a little behind where we all are. So if I want to bring them on board, I have to sort of be more careful. There's no reason to be careful about equal rights. Not in this moment. And I think it's disappointing. It's disappointing to hear him not advocate for this issue as strongly as the moment, in my personal opinion, demands.
What do you think works better? And maybe it's my training in medicine. Imagine every doctor you had a conversation with, right, who's telling you have cancer, starts weeping and crying. Is that what you want your doctor to do? You want them to be able to show up. You want them to feel pain with you, but you want them to be able to stay steady because you need them in that moment. Leadership is not just mirroring the worst emotions. Leadership is trying to come forward and ask what can be done to translate pain in language everyone can understand to beget outcomes that everybody wants. Because I promise you, that little old lady in Brighton agrees with us. The problem, though, is that too often when she talks about our issue, right, she sees a level of emotion that might obfuscate her ability to think through it in terms that she understands. I've been trying my whole life to get people to see the Palestinian issue from the position of Palestinians. And I'll be honest with you, I think sometimes the best way for folks to see the Palestinian issue is to see the Palestinian issue from the perspective of your self-interest as an American.
So on that note, then, what message would you give to Palestinian Americans?
I'm with you. I believe in your foundational rights as people in America to have healthcare and good schools. And I believe in your family's rights to have peace, dignity, and self-determination in your own homeland. And I believe
peace, dignity, and self-determination in your own homeland for your but not equality. That can be left up to the Palestinians and Israelis to decide.
That right is equal to the rights of all people to have those things. And right now, that right is being trampled upon. And I will stand up consistently to make sure that it's not. Whether I'm the lone voice or, God willing, a voice among many. But you're not hiring me to be a lone voice. You're hiring me to build a coalition toward peace, justice, and equity. And my job is to be able to translate that pain into purpose. That's my job. So if you want a shoulder to cry on, maybe I'm not that guy. If you want someone who's going to be louder than you, maybe I'm not that guy. But if you want someone who can understand your pain and translate it into communities to which you don't have access, who can have an honest conversation about the foundational human issues that bring us all to this table, beyond your identity, your rights as a person, and the rights of your family members as people, and to translate those in the lowest common denominator understanding to people across our country to beget the kind of policy outcomes that we want that would actually stop this injustice from happening, then maybe I'm your guy.
So I think framing people who want politicians to unapologetically stand for the one-state solution as emotional or so people who yell or are loud, I think that's misframing what voters are asking for. I think it's, and I think who a leader is someone who advocates for the right thing, even when it's not popular, even when maybe nobody else advocates for it, but explains it so well to people who might be open-minded that they're able to make a difference. And maybe his answer will be enough for most people. You know, like maybe people in Michigan are thinking, you know what? He's a doctor. He supports Medicare for all. That's good enough for me. I think his answer just this it honestly confounds me because I don't know what he's afraid of. I mean, AIPAC is already going after him like in a million different ways. I mean, and if anything, if he came out, let's say, like, I play hypotheticals, right? Like in terms of what he might be afraid of here, like if he came out in support of the one-state solution and say, you know what, that's the only solution that is compatible with equality and, very importantly, the right of return. Let me put it on a T-shirt. Let me advocate. Let me run with it, right? Let me join Rashida and really use my campaign as a moment to educate people about this. I think people will be behind him, and any attempt that AIPAC will have to say, like, you know, he's a bigot, he hates peace, he can say back, you know, I'm asking for equal rights for people. like from the river to the sea. Why are you misframing my words? You know, like the history is on the one state solution side. Like, it's so easy to defend, actually. Like, you know, it's the easiest thing in the world to defend, but people, and not just Democrats, but people of all political parties. And I'm thinking of a third party in particular that I had an unfortunate experience with, where I tried to convince maybe someone who was running for president on a lefty Green Party to advocate for the one state solution. This was in 2024. And that person, who I won't name right now, although I could, I mean, that person from that left-leaning party, I thought it would be so easy to get them to that point, in terms of, because that candidate was getting a lot of media attention, because they were, you know, the entire media ecosystem was like, oh no, like this candidate might be a spoiler, so let's have them on and interview them, and you know, that gets you exposure and eyeballs, and people are all of a sudden you're exposed to all of these people because you're running for president, and you might be a spoiler. People want to have you on their CNN and NBC news shows to talk about whatever you're going to talk about. You can use that opportunity to really educate people. So I thought it would be so easy to get that person to support the one state. So my ask for that candidate was, you know, it was obviously during the genocide, because that candidate at the time said, you know, arms embargo, ceasefire now. And my appeal to them was that ceasefire now is not enough to really get people who would otherwise stay home to go out there and support you, when you have a very slim chance of, I mean, almost a 0% chance of getting elected. And so, but you could move the conversation forward, use your media opportunities to really like bring it back to the issues and center it around, and you can advocate for the one state solution, and maybe even be a Jewish candidate who advocates for the one state solution from the river to the sea. I thought it would be a no-brainer for this candidate, who I otherwise very much liked up to that point. They're also, fun fact, they're also a medical doctor, like Dr. Al-Said. And that person was resistant. And their argument was actually the same as Dr. Al-Sayed's here, where they said, well, what about people who might be with us on ceasefire, but aren't going to go all the way towards giving Palestinians equal rights from the river to the sea? They still wanted to capture those potentially disaffected Democrats, progressive Democratic voters, and didn't want to alienate them and wanted to appeal to them. And they didn't want to go, in their words, too far and support the one state solution. And I was extremely fucking disappointed, right? Like, and because my God, if you're a lefty third party and you're not advocating for that during the genocide, like, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, it really sort of made me realize that a lot of people would just like to appeal to the lowest common denominator, and they care so much about winning or not fucking up this opportunity to win, that they really try to water down, or in Dr. Al-Sayed's words, translate what people are asking for into something else. Or I would use the word triangulate, right? Like to say, okay, so you support the one state solution, you're upset that I'm not supporting it. Let me translate it into what I think you care about. Well, I support an arms embargo and a ceasefire, even though I don't support a one state solution. So I'm still your best chance. I'm still your best shot at getting the things you care about. And that's not how voters work. That's not how politics works, actually. Like, you know, you don't, and those people actually didn't end up voting. People did not end up voting third party for that party that I'm talking about. People preferred to stay home. Most people, a lot of people who otherwise did vote for Democrats in 2020 and do care about Palestine, they did not come to that party, that left-leaning party, because of the message of ceasefire now. That message was not enough to get them out to vote. You know, and I think that's part of why so many people are disappointed with politicians who are scared to say the right thing, or scared to alienate certain groups in their minds, or scared to, in their minds, fuck up the opportunity to get elected because of saying the crazy thing of advocating for equal rights from the river to the sea, which again is, it's silly to think like that when we have, I think, the most popular Democrat in the pro-Palestine circles and in Michigan, Congressmember Tlaib, who advocates for the one-state solution, and a very popular mayor in New York City with a large Jewish population who got elected with the Jewish vote, who advocates for the one-state solution. So I disagree with Dr. El-Sayed strategically that staying sort of out of this issue and not centering it is the right way to go if you want to win. I mean, I disagree with him morally and strategically, that in terms of not backing it right away. So there was another interview I found with Dr. El-Sayed that I'll play for us. Let me try to get the screens. Sorry guys, I'm gonna, let me see. It will take me a minute, but it's okay. There's nobody here. Unless there's some AI listening to me, in which case, hello. Good to see you. Okay. Are you sentient? Are you able to feel anything? Do you have any hopes and dreams? Do you love? Just kidding. I mean, if you can talk back. I'm talking to the AI right now. Okay, so this is an interview I found with Dr. El-Sayed where he, I think, lays out what his problems or what his advice would be to Democratic politicians. What his advice would be. So let's take a listen. Because I thought he was actually more clear about the fault line with Democrats and why certain voters might be disillusioned with the Democratic Party. Oh, sorry, that is from the Sumud podcast, which everybody should check out. I'll give you their channel name right now. Sorry. So it's the Sumud podcast. If you go on YouTube, inspired by Palestine, they have amazing guests, like Dr. El-Sayed, for example, and many others. Okay, and let's listen to Dr. El-Sayed's interview on breaking points with my bestie, Crystal Ball.
I mean, I think you've heard it, right? That roll over and play dead. And unfortunately, that's not what we need. We need to fight. And the tough part about it is this. I mean, I think.
Sorry, I'll go back.
Erasing $700 million of medical debt, making sure kids had glasses on their faces when they needed them. That's what we need in the Senate right now. And I look forward to being able to serve my state this way.
What is your assessment of how Democrats have responded to this iteration of the Trump administration?
I mean, I think you've heard it, right? That roll over and play dead. And unfortunately, that's not what we need. We need to fight. And the tough part about it is this, is when people get elected, they sometimes mistake their job as a representative or a senator for the procedural parts of the job, how you vote. And when they were given the opportunity to use the procedural part of the job, to stand up on that continuing resolution, they missed that. But then bigger picture, the ability to show up and fight back. People want to know that they're congresspeople, even if they don't have the procedural capacity to change what government's doing or hold Trump accountable right now, that they would if they could. And that means being willing to call out Trump, but also not just fight back. Remember what you're fighting for. And here's where the party, I think, has had such a challenge. We do this thing, Democrats, of trying to triangulate to a message that's going to make everybody happy enough, right? So it's going to be perfectly inoffensive to the donors who've been writing too many of those big checks that have corrupted our government. And then we end up saying nothing at all, but saying it with enthusiasm. And then you just look ridiculous. And so for us, we've got to go continue a conversation with the people, understand what is causing their pain, have real clear solutions to solving it, and then be willing to take that solution to the streets. And I think if we do that, we win votes, we win back power, and we can actually take that pain and turn it into something bigger than cynicism, which I believe is hope.
Yeah.
So when I listened to this interview, I think I was like, oh, so he gets it, right? Like voters want clear solutions. Voters want clarity. They're looking for clarity to overcome their cynicism. I think voters want to vote for candidates like Congressmember Rashida Tlaib and Mayor Mamdani. And what they appreciated about them specifically is that they were clear about the solutions, like the one-state solution. So I think he's completely right here. He's 100% right. I just wish he applied his knowledge from this interview, which sorry, let me see when it took place. Because I think it was a month ago, but I could be wrong. And it was from a year ago. Okay, but no, I mean, he's still beautiful. I mean, there's nothing changed in a year. Not that looks matter, although there was someone wrote an article that apparently Democrats are considering running hot candidates because they think that's the solution to get people to vote for them again. Beside all of that, beside the point, I think it's true that voters want clear solutions and politicians who don't hold back and don't mince words and don't hide behind, oh, I need to appease all of these constituencies or these donors or those groups. I don't want to alienate anybody, so I'm just going to find the perfect centrist little message that I'm going to triangulate. I think he's so clear about that, especially when it comes to taking on Trump and Medicare for all. He's not out here saying, healthcare matters and I care about reducing healthcare costs. But I'm not advocating for Medicare for all because I don't want to alienate some lady in Brighton, Michigan, who might have been propagandized to think that Medicare for all would take her insurance away. He's not saying that because he knows he can explain to that lady in Brighton that Medicare for all, he can fight that disinformation campaign from the health insurance companies, and he can fight the disinformation campaign against the one-state solution. And I'm really not sure why he doesn't want to take that on, or why he feels like he can't. And because he has he understands what makes voters what voters are looking for in terms of clear solutions. And I think holding back on the one-state solution is, in my personal opinion, I've never been political anything. I've never been a political strategist, never worked for any party. So don't take my advice. Anybody who's listening out there, potentially in the future, you really don't have to take my advice. But like, if I were to give him advice, I would tell him that applying this clarity that he has with Medicare for all and taking on Trump to the one-state solution would actually help him win. It beyond being the right thing to do. I think it would draw people out who are so fed up with politicians saying the right things, saying all the right platitudes, lying to their faces, trying to be vague without sounding vague. Take that clarity, support the one-state solution, which most people already, when they understand it, they support it. And you'll be right morally, and you'll be right. And I think it would electorally also help you. But again, anybody out there who's listening or thinking of running for Congress, God forbid, if you're thinking about that, kudos to you. But that would be my advice, regardless of which party you're running as, because like I said, and I want to be clear, and it applies to third parties, especially, not especially, equal rights. It applies to the Green Party. Sorry, I just said which party I was talking about. But yeah, like every party should advocate for the one-state solution if they want to win voters like me, and be explicitly anti-Zionist and not just find the lowest common denominator of I support a ceasefire. As we can see, a ceasefire has been officially declared, but you can't have a ceasefire with an apartheid state. You can't have a ceasefire with a state that's according to its own members of that state sees Palestinians as a demographic threat, right? You can't have a ceasefire with that. And voters who are disenchanted with the two-party system are looking for real solutions, clear solutions. So that would be my unsolicited, very much unsolicited advice to Dr. El-Sayed and anybody else running for office. So I wanted to also show someone who used to believe in the two-state solution and has moved on this issue and came out on the side of the one-state solution. And that's Dr. Edward Said. So many doctors today. And he wrote this op-ed for the New York Times, which shockingly they published. And even though, so he supported the two-state solution for many years and even tried to, he was included in the initial negotiation parts of the Oslo process, and then he left because he saw that it was going nowhere and it was just a ruse. So he decided to come out publicly, which was super brave of him, and use all of his charisma, clout, connections in mainstream media like the New York Times, to NPR, to loudly and affirmatively advocate for the one-state solution. And it's a brilliant framing on his part, because really at that point, no one was talking about the one-state solution. No one. It was a two-state solution or nothing, right? You were either for a two-state solution or you were a peace-hating bigot. So he sort of took that framing of the two-state solution and flipped it on its head and called it the one-state solution. Now, of course, Palestinians up to, I think, the 70s, or the PLO, advocated for one secular state from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. So the idea for one secular state was always there. But the framing of adding solution at the end was sort of a nod to the two-state solution and how, because Americans love to hear a solution in whatever policy proposal they're listening to. Like, it just makes it more digestible. So brilliant framing on his part. I'll just read a little bit from it. I also share this article like obsessively with anybody who hasn't read it or heard about it. I think it's such a foundational piece for me. It really changed the way I advocate for Palestinian rights, and I just really admire that he took this step in 1999, like almost 30 years ago. And the New York Times, so brave of him. Given the collapse of the Netanyahu government over the Hawaii peace agreement, can you believe that Netanyahu was still elected in 1999 and is still in power today? I mean, of course, like he left for a period and came back, but like it's unbelievable how relevant this article specifically is to what we're dealing with. It is time to question whether the entire process begun in Oslo in 1993 is the right instrument for bringing peace between Palestinians and Israelis. It is my view that the peace process has in fact put off the real reconciliation that must occur if the 100-year war between Zionism and the Palestinian people is to end. Oslo set the stage for separation, but real peace can come only with a binational Israeli-Palestinian state. Now, I know that some people on the left have like an uncomfortable reaction to the word binational. And honestly, I'm kind of not really 100% clear on that. I think, the idea of, people of Jewish Israelis and Palestinians, like, does that make that if they had equal rights, does that make that a binational state? The idea basically that Dr. El-Sayed is Dr. Said is advocating for is equal rights, right, between Israelis and Palestinians. This is not easy to imagine. The Zionist Israeli official narrative and the Palestinian one are irreconcilable. Israelis say they waged a war of liberation. Palestinians say their society was destroyed, and they're correct. Most of the population evicted or killed or murdered. And in fact, this irreconcilability was already quite obvious. Zionism was not blind to the presence of Arabs in Palestine, writes the distinguished Israeli historian Zev Sternhell in his recent book. Even Zionist figures who had never visited the country knew that it was not devoid of inhabitants. At the same time, neither the Zionist movement abroad nor the pioneers who were there, the pioneers who were beginning to settle the country, could frame a policy toward the Palestinian national movement. The reason for this was not a lack of understanding the problem, but a clear recognition of the insurmountable contradiction between the basic objectives of the two sides. The Zionist side, supremacy, colonialism, replacement and genocide of the indigenous population, the colonial playbook. If Zionist intellectuals and leaders ignore the Arab dilemma, it was chiefly because they knew that this problem had no solution within the Zionist way of thinking. David Ben-Gurion, for instance, was always clear. There is no example in history, he said in 1944, of a people saying, "We agree to renounce our country, let another people come and settle here and outnumber us." Another Zionist leader, Beryl Katzenelson, likewise had no illusions that the opposition between Zionist and Palestinian aims could be surmounted. And by nationalists like Martin Buber, Judah Magnus, and Hannah Arendt were fully aware of what the clash would be like if it came to fruition, as of course it did. Ignore the ad here. I apologize. So this is a great article. I guess I can read a little bit more of it and then move on to the last clip I had for you. Let's see, are there any? Oh, there's nobody here. That's great. Okay, so I'm just talking to the AIs on YouTube's, the internets. So I'll read a little bit more. Vastly outnumbering the Jews, Palestinians during the period after the 1917 Balfour Declaration and the British Mandate always refused anything that would compromise their dominance. It's unfair to berate the Palestinians retrospectively for not accepting partition in 1947. Of course, until 1948, Jews held only about 7% of the land. Why, the Arabs said, the Palestinians said when the partition resolution was proposed, should we concede 55% of Palestine to the Jews, who are a minority in Palestine? Neither the Balfour Declaration nor the Mandate ever specifically conceded that Palestinians had political, as opposed to civil and religious, rights in Palestine. And this is really important. Denying Palestinians' right to political participation is the foundation of the apartheid state. Because if Palestinians had the right to vote, they would be the political majority. So that's why the Zionist state in 1948 expelled more than 750,000 people to artificially create the demographics of a Jewish majority state that didn't exist. Let's see. The conflict appears intractable because it is a contest over the same land by two people who always believed they had valid title to it, and who hoped that the other side, would in time give up or go away. One side won the war, the other lost, but the contest is as alive as ever. We Palestinians ask why a Jew born in Warsaw or New York has the right to settle here according to Israel's law of return, whereas we, the people who lived here for centuries, cannot. After 1967, the conflict between us was exacerbated. Years of military occupation have created in the weaker party anger, humiliation, and hostility. To its discredit, Oslo did little to change the situation. Arafat and his dwindling number of supporters were turned into enforcers of Israeli security, while Palestinians were made to endure the humiliation of dreadful and non-contiguous homelands that make up about 10% of the West Bank and 60% of Gaza. Oslo required us to forget and renounce our history of loss, dispossessed by the very people who taught everyone the importance of not forgetting the past. Thus, we are the victims of the victims, the refugees of the refugees. Israel's raison d'etre as a state has always been that there should be a separate country, a refuge, exclusively for Jews. Oslo itself was based on the principle of separation between Jews and others, as Yitzhak Rabin tirelessly repeated. Yet over the past 50 years, especially since Israeli settlements were first implanted on the occupied territories in 1967, the lives of Jews have become more and more enmeshed with those of non-Jews. The effort to separate has occurred simultaneously and paradoxically with the effort to take more and more land, which has in turn meant that Israel has acquired more and more Palestinians. In Israel proper, Palestinians number about 1 million. I mean, these are figures are according to 1999. So it's I believe now I think the number of Palestinians within Israel proper or historical Palestine is about 2 million, but I could be wrong. Almost 20% of the population. Among Gaza, East Jerusalem, and the West Bank, which is where settlements are the thickest, there are almost 2.5 million Palestinians, which I believe now is I could be wrong, but it might be up to at least 5 or 6 million. And of course, considering the genocide in Gaza, that number might be a little bit lower. Israel has built an entire system of bypassing roads designed to go around Palestinian towns and villages, connecting settlements and avoiding Arabs. But so tiny is the land area of historical Palestine, so closely intertwined are Israelis and Palestinians, despite their inequality and antipathy, that clean separation simply can't really occur or work. It is estimated that by 2010, there will be demographic parity. What then? Clearly a system of privilege, and this is not including the Palestinian refugees, of course, who have been expelled and were outside of the boundaries of historical Palestine and who have the right to return. So there's more than demographic parity already. The Palestinians are the overwhelming majority. Clearly, a system of privileging Israeli Jews will satisfy neither those who want an entirely homogeneous Jewish state nor those who live there but are not Jewish. For the former, Palestinians are an obstacle to be disposed of somehow. For the latter, being Palestinian in the Jewish polity means forever chafing at inferior status. But Israeli Palestinians don't want to move. They say they are already in their country and refuse any talk of joining a separate Palestinian state should one come into being. Ali Abunimah, incredible author and editor-in-chief of the Electronic Intifada, he has talked about how Palestinians who hold citizenship with the Zionist state are overwhelmingly in support of one equal state from the river to the sea. For anyone who sort of uses polls to say, well, Jewish Israelis don't support it. Okay, well, Palestinian citizens of the Zionist state do support it. So they matter too. Meanwhile, the impoverishing conditions imposed on Arafat are making it difficult for him to subdue the highly politicized inhabitants of Gaza and the West Bank. These Palestinians have aspirations for self-determination that, contrary to Israeli calculations, show no signs of withering away. It is also evident that as an Arab people, and given the despondently cold peace treaties between Israel and Egypt and Israel and Jordan, this fact is important. Palestinians want at all costs to preserve their Arab identity as part of the surrounding Arab and Islamic world. For all of this, the problem is that Palestinian self-determination is in a separate state is unworkable, just as unworkable as the principle of separation between a demographically mixed, irreversibly connected Arab population without sovereignty and a Jewish population with it. The question, I believe, is not how to devise means for persisting and trying to separate them, but to see whether it is possible for them to live together as fairly and peacefully as possible. So you see here that Dr. Said was addressing a certain audience, right? Like readers of the New York Times in the 90s. And he was very careful and very meticulous in how he described the dispossession and denial of rights of Palestinians to a New York Times audience, which had to be so fucking brave of him to use his status as professor at Columbia, all of the mainstream media connections that he had with magazines like the New York Times, NPR, to use all of that to advocate for the one-state solution at that time was extremely brave and almost unthinkable. And it's, I think, shameful that American politicians like Bernie Sanders, instead of building on Dr. Said's legacy, have chosen to stay racist and liberal Zionists. And, you know, someone like Noam Chomsky, for example, you know, there's one lecture where Noam Chomsky sort of addresses the one-state solution with Dr. Said. And Chomsky in that lecture says, well, you know, I think it's a good idea, blah, blah, blah. And after Dr. Said passed away, Chomsky reversed his position and said, no, it has to be 2 states. That Chomsky also didn't support BDS. What a vile, disgusting human being Chomsky is, seriously, for not picking up the torch where a giant intellectual like Dr. Said has laid, and so bravely. And instead of supporting him and amplifying his idea and carrying it forward, he chose to sabotage it and hang out with Jeffrey fucking Epstein, which is a whole other thing. But yeah, I send this article on a daily basis to people who annoy me and advocate for the 2-state solution. It's kind of fun to say to people who are Zionists, like, you know, oh, you think you know better than Dr. Edward Said what's good for Palestinians. You know, it's just, I'm so appreciative of him for being so clear and so thoughtful and using his position to advocate for this, even when it was so unpopular almost 30 years ago. Another person whose bravery I so admire and so appreciate is Congressmember Rashida Tlaib. And here she is on Democracy Now! Talking about why she supports the one-state solution. This interview is from 2018, so right when she was elected. So brave. You know, and there's actually a liberal Zionist organization, J Street, liberal, right? I should always say, I always put liberal Zionist in quotes, but like, just forgot this second. I apologize. Because there's no liberal Zionism; it's all racism. And she used, and Congressmember Tlaib used her position right away to advocate for the one-state solution, carrying on Dr. Said's legacy. So let's hear why. Let's hear her reasons for why.
Your family is Palestinian. You have expressed firmly your support for a one-state solution. Can you talk about how you will try to make this happen in the U.S. Congress?
Look, all of it has to happen organically. I mean, people on the ground need to want it. All I know is from my own experiences is that, you know, from dehumanizing, I don't care if it's Israelis or Palestinians, the dehumanization of people, of human beings that really just want to live with human dignity, want equality, want access to the same economic opportunities that even American families want. This is what's lacking in the conversations when we talk about a lot about what's going on in Palestine and what's going on in some of the occupied territories and what's going on even among Israelis. Majority of them, you know, thinking that maybe we can have a 2-state solution. Maybe that's the direction that many of them want, and if that's what they want, then that's their right to self-determine and to gain that. What I can tell you is what I know from my own experience in the United States, looking at real American history, and that separate but, you know, equal doesn't work. It didn't. We tried it. But again, this is what is happening here in America, and they're looking at our own history, right? I mean, that's what I understood is, you know, saying, well, you can only live here, you can only work here. These are the hospitals that you should go to. You know, I keep thinking of my grandmother. Siti Muftiya is, you know, late in her age. She's probably in her late 80s now. You know, she doesn't know what year she was born. And when I talk to her, you know, she doesn't think Israeli past. She thinks this is where I live. This is where I want to be able to go to the hospital, get care that I want, to be able to farm my own land without getting harassed. You know, right next to her home is a checkpoint. She never could have imagined having to be able to be checked before she could leave her home. And those are the things that I'll be able to do, is try to uplift her and many of the Palestinians that very much feel dehumanized. I can try to share those stories that very much relate to the, very much the stories I heard from my African American teachers who taught me about African American history and why, separate but equal didn't work, and why, I really strongly believe that if we stop segregating, that we start integrating the schools there, if we start really talking to each other, not relying on, looking at Trump's America, which is so much like Netanyahu's Israel, that if we stop talking about these divisive, hateful kind of messages that are coming through to so many people. And it is so much not what's happening on the ground. I truly believe Israelis want the same thing. They want peaceful solution, and that may result in them trying to look at my grandmother and saying, yes, you deserve equal rights just as much as I do.
Will you try to impeach President Trump?
Ooh, that really takes you back to 2018, right? Impeachment talks. But this is why she is my president, Congressmember Tlaib. The clarity with which she was talking about, equality from the river to the sea, and how separate but equal does not work. And also the background of growing up in Michigan with African American mentors who were sort of able to impart their experience and why segregation is evil. And even though it hides behind pretending that it's equal access, segregation is in fact not equal access. Separate but equal does not work. Just such a powerful voice that I'm very grateful for to this day. Democrats are idiots for not running her to Senate or president. They're sort of happy to have her stay as a House member that they can sort of point to disaffected voters and say, look, we have Rashida Tlaib, she's a House member. But it's very clear that they are overlooking her when it comes to committee assignments, when it comes to elevating her voice in the discourse in media. They're always overlooking her and instead picking the most disgusting, hypocritical pieces of shit like AOC. Flippity flop. But I'm so, there are people who think, well, what does it matter if there's a Palestinian member of the Democratic Party when the Democratic Party marginalizes them and commits genocide anyway? I think those are valid questions. I think, to me personally, having her clarity and sincerity and carrying the torch for Dr. Edward Said, is extremely meaningful. I wish she would run for president. She's the only candidate, literally the only candidate who I would vote for, if the only Democrat I would vote for ever as president. Otherwise, I'm not voting for Democrats again. That's where I'm at on my personal journey, not recommending anybody do anything with their time. But if she ran for president, I would revise my policy of never voting for another fucking Democrat ever again, and I would vote for her because she is the real deal. And so sincere. And again, I think electorally speaking, the electorate is there. The electorate sees Palestinian, the fight for Palestinian rights, equal rights, and equality from the river to the sea, like the beautiful Moador melon right here. They agree with us. They're with us. So I would, just to harken back to the other doctor, Dr. El Said, who's running for Senate in Michigan. I wish you, if I could speak to you directly, you'll never listen to this. I wish you would support the one-state solution. I wish you joined Rashida. It would be so important to have for her a compatriot in the Senate who joins her on this issue. And also, who's able to push other senators like Bernie Sanders, who likes to pretend he supports Palestinian rights, except he doesn't support the one-state solution. Maybe that will be the next video I make. We can listen to Bernie. There was an interview with Bernie where he was asked about the one-state solution, and he very clearly came out against it. I think that might be where I go next. But yeah, he can put pressure on a liberal Zionist like Bernie from the left by being for the one-state solution. It's the moral position, and it's also the political moment is demanding something more than just ceasefire now, or even an arms embargo, which the Democrats are not serious about. They just voted down a war powers resolution against Trump. So I think what voters are looking for to be able to overlook their apathy and go out and vote on election day when they hate both parties and understand that both parties suck on Palestine. I mean, not just suck, but like are genocidal. I think it would take something more than just I'm better than the alternative. So that's my advice, and also it's the right thing to do. So I'm so thankful for the legacy of Dr. Edward Said and Congressmember Tlaib, my president. Amy, I'm going to say goodbye to you, and to all of you who might be listening later. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And I'll see you tomorrow. If you have any ideas of something I should, some video that has to do with the one-state solution or Palestine that you'd like me to react to or give you some thoughts about, I'm so happy to do it. Just leave a comment, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night. And from the river to the sea.